What are tuples? So tuples are very similar to lists, and they can hold multiple items. You can have tuples within tuples. The main difference between tuples and lists is that tuples are immutable, meaning that you cannot really change a specific item in a tuple the way you were changing it in a list. Now, we will quickly go over some common operations. Now that we know about lists, it's much easier to actually cover tuples, how to access items, how to do slicing, find the length, and concatenation in tuples. And we'll see how things work when we are working with tuples. Right? So let me create a new file. Let's just call this lecture1 tuples.py, and I'm going to bring all the topics we want to talk about. I want to be a little consistent, so let's do it this way. So I said similar to lists, but immutable. Now, common operations: accessing a specific item, slicing, finding the length, and concatenation. Let's start with some simple tuple. And the way we define tuple, another difference between tuple and list is the way we define them, right? That's how we distinguish the tuple from a list, is using parentheses. So in this case, I'm defining a tuple like with 3 items, strings, and items in a tuple don't have to be strings. They could be strings, they could be numbers, they could be integer form, they could be an integer form, they could be floating number, and it can vary. So this is as simple as that. Right? This is basically just a tuple. Now, if I want to access an item, I will say, well, let's say fruits, and let's get the first item. All right, and I print that. I came out of Python. This is in a command environment, so I select all the lines on my laptop. I press Shift Enter, and that does not make it happy. So I'll go to Python, and then I select all the lines and press Shift Enter. Now you can see I can close this. I have my fruits as a tuple, and then I access the first item. So very similar to the way we access items in a list. Now for slicing, you can simply do, let's bring something. Let's bring slice tuple 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, some numbers. And then I can say, well, coordinates, and let's slice it for the first 2 items. This is exactly the same way you do it for a list. There is absolutely no difference. Right? So we get the first 2 items. I could say start from item 1 and go to the 4th item. I would have gotten these 3 items, 20, 30, 40. Remember, we could do negative slicing for lists. We can do the same here. Let's say I want to start from minus, let's say 3, and I want to go all the way to minus 1. So I want these 2 items. If I run that, I'll get 40 and 50. And the same story as before, you could get also steps. All right, if I run this now, I get starting from 1. Right, I want to go to up to item 6, and I'm going every other item. So that would be this list, every other item. This slice with every other item. So I'll go from 20 to 40 to 60, since I'm putting this step as 2. For the length, also the same. All right, let me bring some random tuple. Let's say I define a tuple, the name of the animals, and then I can just simply use the same function I was using before for lists, and I get the length of my tuple, and then running that should give me 3, which is telling me this tuple has 3 items in it. And then remember, you can have tuple within tuple. So I can have, I'm just gonna put it here, nested tuples, which could be nested tuple, could be defined as, let's say 1, 5, 12, and then within that 14, 25, and then within that could be another tuple, would be cat and dog, right? And this will be my nested tuple. Right? If I print that, you will get the nested tuple. Now, a tuple doesn't have to necessarily contain only tuples or simple items. It could contain a list, right? So this could be also a structure where I have a tuple, and within that I have tuples and lists. And you can have it the other way around. You can have lists that contain lists, simple items, and tuples. And of course, you can have multiple nested tuples and lists, depending on the application. Off the top of my head, I can't think of too many applications that you need so many nested tuples or lists. You can do concatenation, right? If I have 2 tuples, let's say I have these 2 tuples, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I can just combine them, right? Let's say combine is equal to simply tuple 1 plus tuple 2. The same way we were concatenating basically lists. If I do print combined, then that would be just a combination of those 2. And you can just have multiple, not just 2, 3, 4, 5. So very similar to lists. I went a little faster because really the main difference between tuple and list is that it's immutable. Now, the way you can test that is immutable testing, right? Just to show that I'm not making this up. Let's say you have a tuple, going back to what we had before, right? Fruits, and you can print it, and you get fruits. And if I run that, select the lines, shift enter, right? So I have my tuple. Now, in a list, I could simply say, well, in the tuple fruits, replace the first item with, for instance, orange. Right? But if I do it here, I get an error. It tells me tuple object does not support item assignment, meaning that you can't really change this once this fruits is in a tuple format. So what if you really want to change it? You define some tuple somewhere in the middle of the process programming, you change your mind, you can just simply convert it into a list. This is a workaround. You can convert that to a list, right? Fruits, and then say, let me just keep them separate. So this is a list now. If I run this, I have to comment this out since this is going to give me an error. So now this is a list, and then I can say, well, fruits, the first item needs to be orange, and then I can convert that back to tuple. The same way that we convert things into list using the function list, we can use the function tuple and convert everything to tuple. So now the fruits is a tuple. If I run that, right? I did not put that into fruits, so let's say fruits lists, and then fruits. After I changed it, I didn't actually change the name. So fruits is converted into a list from tuple. It's placed into fruit lists or fruits list as a list, and then I change the first item to orange, and then I convert that back to tuple. Right? I can just say fruits again. Now your fruits is a tuple again. The big difference is the first item is orange. So this is kind of a workaround. If you really in the middle of the process you define something as a tuple and you realize, well, this is not something I wanted. At this point I really have to change an item. You can just convert it into a list and then assign the item. Now, two things I want to mention here is when do we use tuples if they're exactly the same as lists? Well, two specific cases. In situations where you really want to ensure that the data cannot be modified, right? Because tuples, once they're defined, cannot be modified. And second, when we are returning multiple values from a function, which we will talk about shortly, they can be grouped together as a tuple. And a function that returns more than one value, the output could be, depending on the function, multiple values, and all of those could be grouped together as a tuple. That's something that's kind of common, and you will see people do, and that's one of the places that you actually see tuples probably very frequently.